The Center for Educational Media and the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University are proud to offer professional development to K-12 educators in Tennessee through our online video library. These videos are aligned with standards set by the Tennessee Department of Education. For more professional development videos, check out our website at www.mtsu.edu/CEM.
Hello, I'm Dr. Laura Clark, Director of the Center for Educational Media and Professional Development at MTSU's College of Education. Welcome to the ELL Fall Collaborative 2021. We are beginning our 5th year of the ELL Collaborative at MTSU, and we welcome our longtime participants as well as new participants in the ELL Collaborative. For those joining us for the first time today, the ELL Collaborative offers professional development for all educators who work with English learners, ESL teachers, Gen Ed teachers, administrators, district directors, district coordinators across Tennessee. The ELL Collaborative is part of a broader professional development initiative here at MTSU known as the PK-12 Collaborative, originating in the Center for Educational Media and Professional Development in the College of Education. So let's get started. I'd like to introduce you to our presenters for the first session, Luke Dickerson and Bosma Hassan, a team of ESL teachers who work together at Northfield Elementary School, Murfreesboro City Schools. Luke and Bosma. Luke, before Bosma joins us on screen, would you give us just a little bit of background as to why we contacted you and Bosma today at Northfield to do this presentation?
Sure. Back in 2019, in spring of 2019, we administered our yearly WIDA Access test at Northfield Elementary School, and all of our English language learners that were in our accountability subgroup for the WIDA Access test met their target that year. So we're very proud of our results for the 2019 WIDA Access test administration. So today we're here to kind of share a few insights, not all, of course, because there's so much that goes into having a successful ESL program, but we're going to just highlight a couple of things that we've done. So we really appreciate the opportunity to come. So thank you.
Luke, I will ask you, if you will, let's go ahead and start. And I know Bosma's going to join us just in a few minutes.
Okay, so here is the title of our presentation it's Perspectives from the 100% Mark. So it's insights into how all of our multilingual language learners reach progress on English language proficiency goals. And if you're not sure what a multilingual language learner is, they're also known as English language learners. So this is kind of the new updated term. So a little bit about us. My name, of course, is Luke Dickerson. I'm an ELL teacher at Northfield Elementary School. I've been there since 2009.
My name is Bosma Hassan. I'm an EL teacher at Northfield Elementary School with this amazing teacher, Luke Dickerson. I am happy to be part of the success that our students have achieved. And I'm so thankful to be given the opportunity to share some of our experiences with all of you today.
We have about 40 active ELLs, between 40 and 45 active ELs in our program. So it's about a sixth of the population at Northfield. We are a Title I school. So we do receive some title funds, and we have lots of activities we do with like parent involvement and lots of community partners, things that I've discussed previously, like in other presentations I've done for the CEM. So we won't hit too much on that, but I do think it's important to know a little bit about the demographics of our school. So let's look at some of our objectives today. So our content objectives, like what we want to do, like what we want to reach and what we want to learn, is successful English language programs. And we want to evaluate the perspectives of various stakeholders in an environment with multilingual learners. And then, of course, as an audience, I have some things that I'm going to want you to do. And so this is how you're going to demonstrate your learning. So we have some language objectives. I'm going to want you to listen to a presentation from 2 EL teachers about their experiences during a year when 100% of their multilingual learners reached their language proficiency growth targets on the WIDA Access. So to begin with, I kind of want to activate your background knowledge. We're going to have a focus question that we're kind of going to look at throughout this presentation, and it's going to be, what factors contribute to a successful ESL program in a school? So I know many in the audience will have worked with multilingual learners and have worked in some capacity in an ESL program before. So we would kind of want to see too, like, what are some things that you've had success with? So I've got a little bit of an activity called hanging hashtags. And so what I'd like you to do is, have you experienced success with students before? I want you to create a hashtag that maybe includes a reason or a variable as to like what your success was, and go ahead and post it in the chat. So some examples are like hashtag students read for 20 minutes, hashtag you had awesome students, hashtag creative writing, or hashtag the right rigor. Ooh, I love it. I'm already seeing some. I see like building relationships. That's awesome. Ooh, hashtag identity and culture. I love it. Great. Hashtag collaboration between EL and content area teachers. Yes, that's really important. Agree with that. Perfect. So y'all are just like experts at this. So we're going to kind of move on. One of our big factors are Sciopt protocols. So Sciopt is really big at Northfield. There's been a lot of presentations prior to ours about Sciopt from the Center for Educational Media. So I definitely would recommend that you look at a lot of those videos, check them out. The Center for Applied Linguistics has a lot of resources. They kind of house Sciopt, and kind of like what is Sciopt? Sciopt is kind of like this method or model and ways to kind of instruct English language learners. And there's 8 major components. So there's the lesson preparation, the building the background knowledge, kind of like what we did with hashtags. There's comprehensible input. There's just strategies. There's interaction, practice and application, lesson delivery, and review and assessment. So those are the 8 components. So kind of as we go through, you'll see that a lot of what we did and a lot of our reasons for success, like Sciopt played a big role in it, and some of the Sciopt training that we had several years ago. So we'll just kind of hit on that, and we could spend hours just like on one of those 8 areas. So I'm not going to spend too much time, but I do want to give it a heads up and a shout out to kind of look into. So you can see some of our friends here when we were doing our annual gingerbread houses to go along with our fairy tales.
So if I would have a hashtag, I would say hashtag relationships, because relationships are key when it comes to the success of our students. Relationships promote the success of students, and this applies to all different types of relationships. Relationships among students themselves, relationships among teachers, relationships with parents, with the administration at your school, with community partners. All those different types of relationships do affect the learning of our students somehow. So it is really important to pay close attention to every type of those different relationships. When it comes to the student-to-student relationship, we do a lot of different activities and games at the beginning of the year to build the class community. And these games require cooperation between the students and partnership. We also do a lot of hands-on projects that also require group work. So these types of activities do strengthen the relationship among our students. When it comes to the relationship with the classroom teachers, it is very important to collaborate with the classroom teachers to make sure to provide all the support that the ELLs need in when they come to our classroom and in their regular classrooms, and to use the feedback that the teachers provide to identify the gaps and the skills that we need to work on to enhance their performance in their classrooms. Also, another thing is the relationship with parents, especially the parents of ELLs. When they first come to the United States, schooling is different across the world. So I would like to share my experience as a parent of a former ELL student. When I first came to the United States, I really had trouble understanding the procedures and how things work at school. So I wanted to communicate more with the teachers to understand what my child is doing, the things that I can do to help him and support him. So I really think that it is very important to build that kind of relationship with parents and to reach out to them and to provide them with all the support they need. We have a great team of outreach at Murfreesboro City Schools that help our classroom teachers and help us too. For example, scheduling parent-teacher conferences, communicating with the parents, help those kiddos register at the beginning of the year. So we are so thankful to them. And we also use a great app called Class Dojo, which has a lot of features that facilitates the communication with parents, especially that parents can translate all the text messages that they receive from their classroom teachers, and teachers can share videos and pictures with the parents so they really know what their kids are doing at school. It is also important to have a good relationship with the admins at your school. A relationship built based on trust. It's good to help them understand how things work in the ESL classroom. So whenever we need their help and support, we can reach out to them and they can provide whatever they can to help our ELLs. When it comes to teacher-student relationship, there are different relationship building actions that can be applied with students, like pronouncing students' names correctly, getting to know your students, welcoming students' languages and cultures, welcoming students' celebrations and family traditions, giving your students the opportunity to share their stories, and celebrating students and their success. When it comes to pronouncing students' names correctly, I think this is very important because the student's going to be called by his name all through the school day. So at the beginning of the year, we have to make sure that we are pronouncing those names correctly because our students come from all across the world and names are pronounced differently in different countries. And Luke knows that. My little boy was teaching him yesterday how to pronounce his name in Arabic. So, and Luke really had trouble with that.
Yeah, it's an ongoing
discussion.
Yes. The vowel sounds, those vowel sounds are so hard.
So at least showing the kids that we are trying to get their names right, that's very important. So we can either ask them to teach us if they're old enough, or sometimes little kids have trouble, communicating their thoughts and feelings. We can either use Google or ask their parents. There are so different, many different ways that you can learn how to pronounce their names. And the first couple of school weeks, it's important to get their affirmation if you're saying their names right or not. Also, when it comes to getting to know your students, there are different activities or things that you can use at the beginning of the year, like student surveys or All About Me. We can have the students fill them out and share them with their friends. This will help you learn more about your students and strengthen that relationship. and plan your lessons around things that interest them and get them engaged. Maybe you can learn about their love languages to know how to reward them, and learn the things that makes them happy. Learn about the things that really makes them happy. Welcoming students' languages and cultures. We always try to learn like words from their languages, so they know that we really care, and we really appreciate their languages, and we are having the same kind of struggle they're having, learning English. And we also have them. We also show short videos about their countries to everyone in the ESL classroom. So this way, they other ESL students or ELLs will learn about their friends' backgrounds and countries. And we also have them, draw the the clothes the traditional clothing they wear in their countries, and hang their flags, as you see in the classroom, around the world map. And then we go and find their countries on the world map. So these are some of the things that you can do, and I'm sure there's a lot of other things that you guys do to get to help those students know that we really appreciate their languages and cultures. I'm sorry, Luke, can you go back?
Oh, yeah, we've just got like one
Yes.
more minute, Bosma. Okay.
Yes. Welcoming student celebrations and family traditions. Luke is very good at this. So during Ramadan, he plans a lot of activities that the students can work on when they come to us during lunchtime. They feel so happy to see that people really care about their celebrations. We also read books about Ramadan, about the Hispanic Heritage Month, Dia de los Muertos, the Hanukkah, and a lot of others celebrations. We also give the students the opportunity to tell their stories. This is needs time, because the stronger the relationship between you and your students, and the more comfortable and cared for they feel, the more likely they're willing to share their stories with you. Last but not least, celebrating students and their success. We have those bulletin boards in our classroom. Luke, if you can move to the next slide.
Okay.
So we hang up their work. This way, they become more confident, and they understand that they do have the ability to learn. We also hang their pictures and pictures of our family, so they know that we really consider them as part of our family. We also use an ongoing reward system in our classroom. So every day, if they do a great job of listening and working hard, they earn a sticker, or more than one sticker. And then every Friday, we have Sweet Friday. So if they earn certain number of stickers, they get candy. And then once they fill out their sticker sheet, they get a prize from the prize box.
We love our kids.
Yes, we do.
We are very fortunate to be to have each other and to support each other. I think that's a big part of our success. So, Bosma, you are just such a strength, and I am so glad to be able to work with you.
Thank you so much, Luke. Yeah. Thank you.
So I'm going to kind of skip ahead, and I'm going to mention the relationships with teachers, and I'm going to move to the work with our professional learning communities. And so professional learning communities are huge at Northfield. And if you've been at MTSU for very long, you probably are familiar with Dr. Aker. And I had a class with him when I was a teacher and starting out. And I would say that the strengths and learning about professional learning communities and how teachers kind of work together to plan and analyze data and things has been very empowering to all learners in my school. And so Rick DeFore and Dr. Ecker they are kind of like the powerhouse. So we are so fortunate to have Dr. Ecker and MTSU here in Tennessee, because they bring so many resources with professional learning communities. And so professional learning communities, there's 4 main questions that they look at. So they look at like, what do we want all students to know and be able to do? And then how will we know if they learn it? And then how will we respond when some students do not learn it? And then how will we extend learning for our students who are already proficient? So I think one of like our keys for our like success is like really knowing our standards, really working within those like WIDA standards and the what. So like we'll kudos and break down standards so that we can identify all the different pieces, because our state standards are very dense and very language rich. So sitting down with our classroom teachers and breaking apart those standards and recognizing everybody's strengths. So like as an ESL teacher, sometimes it's very difficult because we service kindergarten all the way up through 6th grade at our school. So that's a lot of standards for like one person to know. So we rely heavily on like our classroom teachers because they are kind of like the powerhouse for just that grade level standards. So they really know it really well. So like when we are in those grade level PLCs and breaking apart those standards and talking about them, it's something that's very powerful. And so like the next part of that is like, how will we know if they know it? So like kind of looking at like how it's assessed. And as an ESL teacher, that's something that's very important because you really can't demonstrate your knowledge without using language, because like language is communication. So like there's no assessment out there that doesn't have language attributes. There's no content standard out there that doesn't have academic language that's needed. So I think that that is an important part to break apart with that first question, but it's also important to look at like with how it's going to be assessed. And then so like how will we respond when they don't know it? I think that this is really key, like with English language learners. So often we think, oh, they can't do this. But then if we look at it and we scaffold it and we break apart those standards and we look at those WIDA performance definitions and those descriptors and can-dos, like that really lets us know like how do we powerfully like differentiate to like where we actually are focused in on those standards. And then so like how will we extend learning for students who are already proficient? We have students that are at Northfield that are gifted like English language learners. They excel at learning. They're quick with a lot like picking up language learning. Just because they may be learning a language, that doesn't mean that they don't have lots of other strengths and that they may not have mastered a state standard. So sometimes we have to extend it and challenge our students because we're heavily focused on growth with our students. I think that is very key, like when we're looking at professional learning communities, like how do we allow like all of our students to grow? So these are discussions that are happening with the ESL teacher and the content teacher and even like the special area teachers, and also like our interventionist and our special education teachers, lots of those support staffs, because they have roles to play too. And I think part of our success when we get back to those relationships is I like really identifying those roles and really appreciating and empowering those individuals to advocate for students and to share their knowledge and to utilize their knowledge and recognize that. So like we are all teachers of language learners. So that's something that really means a lot to us is those relationships like with our teachers. I'll say this morning, I've already gotten a couple of text messages from our content teachers. You know, they knew about our presentation today. So we all like really encourage each other and we support each other, and it's super empowering. And so like healthy relationships through professional learning communities, because that's very powerful and very key. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the planning part. So we utilized a scope and sequence, and we still utilize a scope and sequence at our school when we're looking at grade level standards. And so we go over teachers' weekly plans to look at those specific language skills and like what to focus on. So back in 2019, we actually had this standards board that was in our front office. So like all teachers knew what all grade levels were working on in the 4 main content areas from week to week, and these were updated. And so we would work with classroom teachers to find materials that was covering like what was being taught, like in the general ed classroom, so that we could either front load information or continue to support. We really prefer to front load a lot of the information because that empowers like our ELLs to like participate more when they actually see it in the mainstream classroom. So the scope and sequence helped us to do that. Another huge part of our success was Elevation. Elevation is huge. So Elevation's a software company that focuses particularly on serving ELs and educators that service them. So like all of our data and like demographic information, like our IOP work, lots of notes and that show collaboration and document collaboration between us and the classroom teachers, us and some of our special ed teachers, notes from like any RTI meetings we may have had, IOP meetings, all these kinds of things we've documented like in Elevation. And so we also have like an instructional strategy component. So like the hanging hashtags activity that we did, that's an Elevation activity that we typically do like in our classroom. And so a lot of those instructional strategies that are in Elevation, they align with the Sciopt strategies and the Sciopt protocols. So they'll give lots of videos on like what does this strategy look like, and how do you actually use it in the classroom. And so that's something that's been very powerful. And we can also like note and document and link those strategies to the IOP document, like for the individual student like demographic page. So that way, like our teachers are data driven, and that they have tools and strategies to use like with their kids. Something that's very important for us, like a lot of our ESL students, they're only with us for an hour. So like for us, like that collaboration, it has to be ongoing because we're all learning. We've never mastered everything. But like we have to have tools and ways to communicate it with it. And those classroom teachers have to have tools because they're with the students the majority of the day, right? So they're just with us for an hour. But like that hour can be very impactful. So like with our IOPs that are housed in Elevation, we do a lot with the WIDA can-do descriptors. So like the testing accommodations are all documented there. We have suggested modifications. We have those growth trajectories. So the growth trajectories really just help the teachers know, hey, this kid's going to be in that accountability subgroup. So everybody's on the same page. It doesn't really help with instruction, but it does help with like, hey, we're all in this together and this is a school score. So like this is something that we all make or break together because we're all teachers of language learners. So we also have a lot of our state and local assessment data that's there. So TN Ready, we were using InCase in 2019 for our ELA assessments, and then we were using iReady for math at that time. So we've kind of updated that a little bit this year in our district, but similar similar format with looking at data that's aligned to those content standards. I think that's very important for the ESL teacher to know about the content as well as the language. And so we always have like our initial like ILP meetings in person, and like we have support and recognition from the teacher and the admin, and they sign off on the ILP plans. So they join us and there's that in-person meeting, because like all English language learners are unique and they all have they all deserve to have their individual needs met. That's a philosophy here at Northfield, where every student succeeds. That's our school motto. So some of like our IOP goals. This is something that's now required by the state board rule, but back in 2019, like all of our ELLs, they had to have goals for all 4 language domains. So listening, reading, speaking, and writing. So they were based off of those like progressing language levels. So the next higher like level was like the goal. So the current level of performance for their can-do was also initially documented, but a lot of their goals were based off of those key uses can-dos. And we use the key uses can-dos because they're more rigorous, they're updated, and they align better with where we're going, like with our standards as WIDA has like rolled out and released. And so currently we're working on like a lot of updates with the WIDA 2020 standards. So we're kind of trying to prepare and do some prep work for that. So like our ESL teachers and classroom teachers, they collect like the student work samples, and we're monitoring progress. We're looking at it, and it's every 4.5 weeks, if not even like before then. Like some students, you know, based off of our data that we have, like need it more frequently than that. So, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a form, but just minor adjustments and things. And so after our initial like district benchmarks, our multilingual learners all had like individual goals too, based on like those instructional assessments, those content ones. And so as students were progressing, those goals are updated, they're individualized, they're based off of those benchmark datas, and we progress monitored and administered other assessments. So like these could have been an Ames Web or 95%. We did Lexia that year. We also had Imagine Learning in the district, and then Learning A to Z. And then another part of the IOP goals, you know, as we try those strategies out and as we've had those meetings, we see what's working, what's not, and we're noting that like in our elevation platform. I think that's really key to kind of see like what's worked for a student, what hasn't worked. So you're monitoring and you're adjusting. And then another thing that's very powerful, about 5% of our multilingual learners are dually identified. So they have at that time they had an IEP, an individualized education plan, and a language plan. And so for us, something that was super powerful was making sure that the tier 4 or tier 5 teachers had copies of those ILP goals. And we sat down, we looked at the key level usage, and they actually had a say in those like initial instructional like elevation goals that we had. So we were looking and we're at the WIDA standards, and we're looking at the content standards together, and we're looking at the assessment data, the special ed assessment data. We're looking at the disability. We're seeing what are the students' needs, and we're formulating a plan on that. So both the IEP and the ILP are aligned, and they're supporting each other, and we can provide feedback. I think that that's something that's very powerful to you. So as a team, we're all working on towards like the same goals. And that could be a whole presentation in itself, to be honest. Another big thing that has contributed to our success is like the focus when we're looking at reading and literacy is like having conversations around the science of reading. So for me as an ESL teacher, and for me as an elementary school teacher, I think that understanding those components as to like what all is involved in skilled reading is important to know, because sometimes we may not understand, like, why is that student a level 3 on reading or a level 2 on writing? And we may have several students that are level 3 and several students that are level 2, but it may be one of these different components that is causing that is an area in which that student needs additional support. So like, why are we not seeing the growth in reading? So we sometimes will have discussions. Is it a lack of background knowledge? Like, well, what can we do to kind of support that? Was it a lack of vocabulary? How can we kind of support this issue? Or how have we planned for vocabulary instruction just in general, like with our lessons, and how have we activated that background knowledge too? So sometimes it may be the instructional methods too, so it's not just a student, but it's important, like in those PLCs when we're looking at reading and progress, to identify those different components and looking at those language demands and the language structures and the syntax. How are things there? Like the verbal reasoning, so that's understanding, kind of, and being able to like inference. So like if you remember like those old Amelia Bedelia books, Amelia Bedelia took everything very literally. So that's something that sometimes, like when we're learning a language, we take language very literally initially. So like those are things that we may need to have prior discussions and illustrate. Okay, well, this phrase or this metaphor, it's not literal, he's not as big as an elephant, so the literacy knowledge, so print concepts and genres. So we recently just had a student enter that is a beautiful reader in Spanish, but if you ask him like about author's purpose, that's not something he learned. So even in Spanish, he's not going to get it because of that skill. So front loading some of those knowledge and some of those skills, and recognizing too, like that may not be something that they do in Spanish. So sometimes like rhyming trips up a lot of students. So then we have the basic like word recognition, breaking it down. So from the phonological awareness, like dealing with the phonemes and the sounds, the decoding, like how the spelling and the sounds and the graphemes are related, and then the sight word recognition. So there's all these different components that are interwoven into each other to allow for skilled reading. And that's one of the really big parts of our success on the access, is the focus on literacy. Because if you look at the access test in general, like reading and writing are the most like heavily weighted components. That doesn't necessarily mean though that we completely ignored like listening and speaking, because those are also really big, and you'll see how they're connected to literacy in just a second. So when we're talking about phonological awareness, there are lots of different skills, and this is from Timeful Teaching. So you can see that we go all the way, starting here, to the letter sound correspondence, to the phonemes, and then as we look at the phonemes here, these skills like progressively increase as we move further out in the circle. So it's an easier skill to identify the sounds rather than like manipulating like phonemes in different words. So like if I take the word cat and I take the k and I add the b, it makes the bat. So that's harder than just recognizing like the k sound. So recognizing like word, like onset and rhyme. So going from rhyming to word families. The syllables, we deal a lot with syllabification, and then words, and we read a lot of poems and nursery rhymes and chants, because it's like when we're looking at fluency and stuff, it's not just calling the words, but when you're reading with prosody and with that kind of inflection as you're reading, it's showing some understanding of what's going on. So you really have to understand. So you will have English learners that are good and they're fluent readers, but then they don't understand. So I think that's kind of where a lot of the oral language comes into play. So moving on to this, when we look at this wheel, this is known as the literacy wheel. Oral language kind of falls in the center of all of this. So when you're reading text, you're discussing text, you're having conversations. So you're using language to gain and build language. So we do that phonemic awareness, phonics and spelling. We're looking at syntax. So through our either the power sentences, the mentor sentences, those language types, they're called lots of different things. So we do that a lot within text. And so we're looking at vocabulary and morphology, the words and what they mean in context. And then when we're looking at text expression and written expression, these things all support each other and one another. So you cannot take one piece of the wheel out and have effective literacy instruction. So one of our keys too, as we're looking at a text and we're looking at grade level text, is how do we build on questions as a teacher to clarify thinking. And so we do a lot with text dependent questions. And so there's also a lot of resources there. So leveling of the questions and building up and supporting students through their understandings as teachers and guiding them with their reading. And so on the other side, so as students are looking at just words, there's a lot that's going in just to recognize what a word means just in general. So this is the 4-part processing model for word recognition. So there's a lot that goes into understanding a word. Sometimes we don't think it's well, I told him the word, why didn't he get it? So here we have we start with one of them is the phonological processor. So this is being able to recognize the individual sounds that make up spoken words, those individual phonemes. And this is where you retrieve that information for recognizing those individual sounds. And then so the orthographic processor, that's where you recognize the print, what it visually looks like. And so we always start here with those sounds, because this when you're looking at effective reading instruction, being able to recognize those sounds, particularly for our students that are born here in the country. So many of our ELLs are born here in the country. So a lot of our ELs, they already come with some English and some Spanish. So being able to start with the sounds is what effective reading instruction and what the research tells us needs to happen first. So I always start with phonemic awareness activities. We do a lot with silent ball and tapping in our class, things that are very multisensory. And then so we take that and we combine it with the orthographic processor, and that's where you get the phonics. So the phonics is combining the two. Then you have the meaning processor. So it organizes kind of what words mean, and associated meanings. This is where you see root words, things like that, and how we kind of categorize words. So like when we are learning words in the brain, we kind of put them together in groups. So that's where this is. But you also connected to meaning is context. And so that's where like having like multiple meaning words and being able to like read the words and understand them, that's something that's key. So is it read or read, or is it table, like table that I'm eating out of, or is it like table like the math table? And so here you really have to look at the sentence and the context and the structure, and punctuation matters. So you can see here we have our punctuation marks, and this is a graph that we have like in our classroom. This is something that's also very important. So this is a phoneme grapheme chart that's related to the vowels. And so when we are looking at like phonological awareness, vowel sounds typically give English language learners, but like even like English learners, a very difficult time. So because of how they're shaped in the mouth, we typically will address like the long E sound, like E, and the U sound, like those are things that we would like introduce like in a progression. We wouldn't want to discriminate between like the E and the I sound because of where they're made in the mouth initially starting out, like when we're doing with phonemic awareness instruction. So like we take these phonemes, which these are the vowel phonemes, and the phonemes are in English have lots of different graphemes. So a grapheme is like the individual unit of the letters that make up that sound. So there's lots of different blends, like letter blends or graphemes that make the long E sound. And that's something like you may have heard of English being like a deep language. Not a shallow language, and it's because we have so many graphemes that align like with these different vowel phonemes, and this is something that trips up a lot of our English language learners. So like, I hear the E sound, but why is it EY and not EE? Or EA is a very tricky one because, as we know, that grapheme has are two different sounds. So we have this chart that's up in the room, and so as we go over these graphemes and the phonemes, like with the kids, we break it down to the sentence levels and and students write a sentence that's in context, like with the word, because it goes back to that meaning processor. It draws pictures, because like phonemic awareness and phonological awareness, when we do these skills, if we don't have meaning, we're not meaning all those areas of that literacy strand. And so we also, you can kind of see here, these are some other posters we have. So we have some phonics posters with blends and sounds that students can kind of reference. We do a lot like with sentences from the text, and here we were adding quotation marks, like pasta quotation marks at the sentence level. Here we were going back to question matrices and those questions about a text. So we do a lot with interactive notebooks, like with our students. So those interactive notebooks have like these sentence stems, but they also have question matrices because we want the students to interact with each other regarding the text. And so by providing these supports, they can ask each other questions and kind of develop and engage in the meaning. And as teachers, you know, I can rephrase and also ask questions, but as students ask questions and engage with each other, it really furthers their meaning even further. So we kind of have a little bit of a loud class at Northfield, to be honest, but that's a good thing, we find.
So when it comes to curriculum materials, we greatly rely on Learning A to Z for teaching resources. This company offers some great resources from which we mainly use Reading A to Z, Headsprout, Science A to Z, and a Vocabulary A to Z. When it comes to Reading A to Z, Reading A to Z offers like multilingual books and books at different reading levels, which really suits our ELLs because they are usually at different reading levels. So this way we can find a book that focuses on a certain topic, but this book comes at like different reading levels to meet the needs and levels of our students. It also offers a lot of printable materials and including the books, so each student can have their own book, and activities that target different language skills. Headsprout is an adaptive reading program that teaches foundational reading skills and comprehension strategies through a series of interactive episodes. When the students first start on the program, they take an assessment that determines their levels and their placement. The kids really enjoy working on Headsprout because it's like a game-based program, and it really helps them with their reading skills. Vocabulary A to Z offers both pre-made and customized lessons. So when the classroom teachers share their weekly plans with us, we customize lessons that target or that focus on the targeted vocabularies that the students are working on in their classrooms. The vocabulary A to Z really supports the different strands of the science of reading, especially when it comes to the word level, because kids, through all those online game-based activities, they work on identifying the sounds in words, the number of words in sentences. They work on identifying the number of syllables. They work on the meaning of the words, how to spell the words, seeing the words in context, so they would better understand their meanings. So, and it also offers like printable materials that cover like 5 days lesson plans, and all those activities and materials focus on the targeted vocabulary words. Science A to Z offers books both in English and Spanish, and these books are also at different reading levels. It also offers printable materials for the teachers to print out, and activities that target different language skills as well. It is a project-based learning program, and it offers like videos for the kids to watch, and a lot of like different fun activities that they really enjoy working on. So an important part of planning is writing content and language objectives. And I'm really, really, really thankful to my coworker because he really helped me understand or learn how to formulate content and language objectives, because I've been working with him for like more than like maybe around 6 years, and that was one of the things that I'm really thankful for. Content and language objectives are complementary. They complete each other, and they are equally important because, when it comes to content, that's the what, and the language objectives is the how. So content objective help the students know what they are held accountable for, what the students should know and learn toward the end of the lesson, and the language objectives gives them access to the content being taught. And language is there not only when it comes to EL, but across all different content areas, social study, math, science. So it's inseparable. So that's why writing content and language objectives is not only important for ELLs, but also for regular or native speakers do. When it comes to content and language objectives, writing those, we either look at the state standards. In order to formulate content and language objectives, you would either look closely at the state standards when writing major lesson objectives, or you would look closely at the instructions given for a certain activity when writing more specific objectives. Then you would choose a measurable verb or language function that matches the goal of the lesson and determine the language skill that the students need to apply in order to have access to the content being taught or in order to achieve the lesson's goal. Here we have an example. So we have a state standard, identify basic similarities and differences between two texts on the same topic, including written details and illustrations when developmentally appropriate. Content objectives, we identify the similarities and differences between types of birds, identify words and phrases used for comparing and contrasting. So these two content objectives were derived from the state standards. And then I look at the list of Bloom's measurable verbs, and I choose the verb that goes with the content objective I'm writing. And then when it comes to language objectives, I will think of the language skills that the students will be practicing to access or to achieve those goals. So the students will discuss with a partner the similarities and differences between two birds. So that's speaking, and then ask and answer questions about the reading material, and read sentences to decide whether they show similarities or differences. Then write to compare two birds using words that convey similarities and differences. So this is how we mainly write our content and language objectives.
Thank you, Bosma.
Thank you.
Before I go to the first question, because we do have questions, I'm blown away by your presentation today. I just want to say the children who get to have you as a teacher are very lucky. So let's move on to the questions that have come. You know, I'm going to kind of start back at the beginning of the presentation, and we'll take it in that order. Luke, you spoke about Sciopt early in the presentation, and there was a question from a viewer today that says, is the Sciopt model implemented in the Gen Ed classroom?
Parts of it are. Like we discussed things like some of those content and language objectives and like those strategies. So like we look at those different components. And so in that year, I actually surveyed my classroom teachers about those different components. And so like we're about like where they would like professional development and which of those Sciopt components. So like in our PLCs, we provided extra support and scaffolding. So it was something that was like, it's an ongoing work, like with our classroom teachers. Is it fully implemented? No, but they're kind of aware of different pieces of it, and they've had some say in as to like, this is an area that we could use more support and help in.
Okay. All right. That's good. A question early in the presentation came from someone, and they said, is your ESL program scope and sequence at Northfield, is it available for public view? She or he said, I'm looking at the district and Northfield websites, but I don't see anything. This would be helpful to give other districts kind of a start on some of the things that you are suggesting. So is it available for public view?
Back in 2019 it was, but our district recently moved to moving it to a Google Drive. So it's housed there and it's private. But I'm sure if we contact the right people, and if you send us an email, if they're on the website, you know, send me an email and we'll see what we can work out, because that is a very valid question. So,
yes. Okay. And if you, let's see. Your email, your contact info should be available on the slides on this presentation.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And I'll put it in the chat too.
All right, that's great. All right, another question. For your ILPs, do you set a new goal each 4.5 weeks, or do you have one big goal for the year and show progress every 4.5 weeks?
It depends on the student and it depends on the data. So if you remember, we talked about some students needing it broken down and those baby steps. So it really depends on what the ILP team decides. But we look at those goals and they're monitored and adjusted at least every 4.5 weeks, if not more frequently, as we're getting feedback from teachers.
Okay, all right. So, Bosma, I have a question for you, Bosma.
Yes.
You have such a unique and valuable perspective of being the parent of an English learner and the teacher of English learners.
And a former ESL student myself.
Former English learner. I mean, how valuable is that in terms
yes,
of
it is. Yes, it is very valuable, you know, because like I know what these kids are going through.
Yes.
Being a former EL student, and I had a great EL teacher, which is Miss Dickerson. And to be honest, like I've never whenever I get to her classroom, that's when I feel like safe, you know, I'm home, you know. So like I want my students to feel the same, you know, just to love to come to our ESL classroom. Especially a lot of those kids come to our classroom for like several years. So if they start hating coming to our classroom, that's a big problem. They're not going to learn anything.
Yeah.
So that's why I think having like a fun, loving class is very, very important.
That's beautiful. Could you tell teachers what might be one or two immediate and simple things they could do, perhaps tomorrow, to reach out to parents and to begin to help parents feel more connected to what is happening at school? Just some simple steps that you believe and that you know can be effective.
I don't know, maybe like first, if they have a team of outreach in their like district, that's a good way to start. And I'm saying like we have a lot of different apps now. Like Class Dojo is a great way to communicate with those parents. So, you know, because like a lot of those parents, they can't speak English. So being able to translate instantly, that's a very like good feature, you know. And through this app, you can reach them anytime, share with them everything that you can like share from the day of your like students at school. So I think that's maybe what else? Like we can use Google Translate if it's gonna be like it needs time to, you know, set up everything on that app. But I'm very thankful being able to speak more than one language. So I have a great relationship with my Arabic speaking, you know, families, because you can like they call me maybe on daily basis, reaching out to me to help them not only with things that have to do with their kiddos at school, but like personal things. So I'm very, very thankful to have this, you know, advantage. So I know like using Google Translate can help too. I know it doesn't like usually translates well, but it works.
And would you state the name of the other app, please? And also, if you would, Luke or Bosma, add that in the chat, please.
Yes, sure.
What's the name of that first app?
Class Dojo.
Class Dojo. Okay, great. It sounds like what you're saying is one of the most effective bridges we can make with parents is to help the language translation happen more easily.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is very valuable. Okay, another question, Luke or Bosma. it sounds clear to me that you work very well with your collaboratively with your whole teaching staff there at Northfield. How much time do you get to have shared planning? How much planning time do teachers have, and how much time is it in shared planning with you as EL teachers?
Oh, this is really messy. I'll say we're very stretched, like when it comes to like protected planning time and stuff. This is where we, as a co-team of teachers, we have to kind of plan and decide, hey, this is like the second grade planning time. Something is really flagged, like on our monitoring forms. We've gotten these emails. I'll cover this class. You go Bosma and you work on this, and or Bosma, you go work on this and I'll do this. So we have to kind of be a little bit of flexible, but like we get our 45 minutes a day. That's our time. So that's where like that elevation and that kind of asynchronous communication, like with emails and with the monitoring forms and the notes that we're getting, things that we're hearing, that's important. So it's messy. It's kind of trying. Some of it happens before school, after school.
Yes.
Those kinds of things.
And also, like we pick up our students from their classrooms. So sometimes we use that time to, okay, like quick talk with their teachers, anything they're struggling with. They would give us maybe like an activity that we need to work on with their kiddos. So that's a good thing to do too. And also, they leave us their like weekly lesson plans in our mailboxes. So we know that this week they're focusing on these like vocabulary words, this specific spelling rule. So that's another way for us to keep up with what they're doing in their classrooms.
I think every one of us who are in schools or have been in schools can relate to what you just said, that it's messy. The shared planning and the scheduling and the covering unexpected gaps, it's messy. Yes. All right. That's
how to
good.
use the data, though. Make sure your decisions of how you're using your time are based on data. Because time is a finite resource. It
Yes.
really is. So.
Yeah. All right. That's good. That's a good piece of advice. What specific instructional strategies were used with teaching the content besides the elevation strategies? It would be helpful to see some of them and how they help students meet their growth targets. What do you have to say about that?
Like we use a lot of like games too, like games-based activities.
Mm-hmm.
They help a lot. You know, they're fun, and at the same time, they help the students learn the content being taught. So matching games, we have like Go Fish to teach them like some sounds. So yeah, we have plenty of those that we use at our classroom. Silent Ball.
Yes. Like those text dependent questions, and that is a big strategy. Like TDQs is something that's really huge if you're looking at text in general. And just like being able to like rebroadcast and re-clarify like what students are thinking. The interactive notebooks and like those anchor charts, those kinds of things are huge, and those are big strategies in our classroom. So there's lots and lots of different ones out there. We could do just an hour-long presentation on strategies.
Yes.
Those are some of my top ones.
Okay. All right. Regarding the monitoring form, we have a question here. How often do you send out the monitoring form?
So like we have different ways of monitoring. So we send those out like at every like grading period. And then like, but we're looking at like other data and forms every like 4.5 weeks. So like those actual forms are great ways for the teachers to like give very meaningful and in-depth feedback on how the students are doing it. So we were sending those out a lot more frequently, but it's very difficult for classroom teachers to fill out so much. So it was more of quality over quantity, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So like in the kind of the feedback that you're getting. So but our teachers are great in getting those filled out and looking at those different 4 domains, because like I think it's very important to look at those 4 domains, because you use language to build language and to gain content and stuff. So and I think that one of those things with the actual form itself, we get feedback from teachers a lot more frequently than just those like 4.5 weeks. And like we're adjusting based off of that. And so we'll take the notes that are in the elevation and like write them or send those emails and plan. So is that helpful? I hope that answers their question.
I'm sure it is. And these are the questions coming right here to us.
Great.
We have one more question. What is your opinion, Bosma and Luke, on pushing into the classrooms?
So we've done some push-in, like, and it's appropriate, like, for some students. So, and we're planning on some push-in activities.
Yes.
Like with some of our grade levels, like with some of our project-based learning that we do, so students can share and participate. But it's also good to have time to have to pool like some of our friends, particularly like newcomers, to work on some of those language skills. So it has its place and it can be used effectively. So I think as any program model, like you have really good pull-out instruction, and you have really bad pull-out instruction, you can have really good push-in, and you can have not very good effective push-in. So I like I like that it's a choice that like we as an IOP team have. And so like it's a decision that's made from the ESL teachers and the classroom teachers. So we have that flexibility and we have that buy-in. I think having both teachers to have the buy-in and to have that plan and knowing like what's in place is really key to successful push-in instruction.
Yeah. Well, that's all the questions that have come on chat for now. Please, everyone, remember that you can add questions for the next week or so onto Discord, which is on our CEM website. And you can find that at mtsu.edu/CEM. If you have any further questions for Luke and Bosma, please put it on Discord, on the Discord platform. And we're asking presenters to please monitor Discord for the next week in case some more questions come. Luke and Bosma, I have goosebumps today from your presentation because you've presented such a beautiful blend of targeted strategic instruction with strategies and ideas, together with the stressing the importance and giving ideas on how to build relationships among students, the teachers, the parents, and the school administration. So I think it's very exciting to hear the success stories that you have at Northfield. And I know we have success stories across the state, but we wanted to share what's happening at Northfield today. Luke Dickerson, Bosma Hassan, thank you so much for being with us today.
And thank you.
Thank you
for this opportunity. Thank you.